Gratitude, Divines and Divinettes. Free India. I'm just coming on here real quick to talk about new chapters. Yes, whether or not you are in a new chapter or you are closing out one to enter a new one, or you are balancing out old things so that you can expedite your push into a new chapter. New chapters matter, and it's necessary to be able to take the time to self-reflect and allow yourself to kind of gain some traction with everything that you've already experienced in your current or old chapters. I encourage that because I feel like when you're transitioning or you're in an ascension phase and you want to be able to elevate yourself, that's when you get the most to occur to try to stop you, to stagnate you, to hold you back. The delays, just different things try to come into your space and into your energy when you are like sure and certain that you're trying to elevate yourself into a new chapter. That's just a part of like growth in general. And when people are used to seeing you in a certain light or in a certain way, and you choose to take new steps and make new changes for yourself to elevate into a new chapter, it may not be always welcome. Everybody doesn't want to see you successfully allowing yourself to evolve from the past. Some people want you to stay in your past as if it's affecting them in some type of way, or they just want you to stay in your past because they don't want to see you elevate. So it's a must to be certain that you're going to do so regardless of who falls off of you and off of your path, versus allowing yourself to feel like you have to stay and remain stuck just because those people are not allowing you to gracefully move forward. Some people really don't want to see you move forward, and it be for different reasons that honestly can be unbeknownst to you. And I'm speaking from this point of view because I know I'm not the only person who experiences wanting to evolve on a consistent basis. But still, at the same time, when doing so, I just have become used to people falling off of the path. And it's by their own choice. I never kicked anyone out of my life by being a truthful person to people about my own issues, my insecurities. I've been vulnerable. I've been truthful and honest to people about, my downfalls. I'm a very open and expressive person, especially the people that I've built relationships with, had relationships with, friendships with, have loved and stuff like that. And I realized that, a lot of people may have an issue with that. I don't know what the issue is for, but I know that once I was able to start allowing myself to recognize that I can read energy and that it's okay to do so, and that my intuition is my intuition for a reason, I was able to really just recognize how people project. And when you're trying to be all of who you are meant to be, people will try to turn on this energy of competition with you and your energy of competing with your best version, as if what you're doing is to attack them. And in reality, you're not worried or focused on them. You're focused on your next chapter. And that's what this whole thing is about right now. It's about new chapters and allowing yourself to evolve into a new chapter, sometimes with the realization that you may be having to do so alone, especially in those first few stages of the first few steps that you take. And I'm touching on new chapters now in 2022 in this spring while I'm in my midheaven energy, because I really enjoy taking this new journey of the way that I'm celebrating my birthdays. So I'll be clear, the way that I'm celebrating my birthdays this last year of my 20s, because, I'm 29. I call this my life cycle 5, and also call it my first year in my life cycle 5. And when my book 20 Divine comes out, you'll be able to read, if you are interested in self journeys and in the Bree India path, you can kind of see my point of view on where I'm going with my personal life. People who don't have interest have the right to ignore me or unfollow me, and gravitate to who you admire. You don't have to watch people that you have an issue with. It's always your choice to say, okay, I don't like the way that this person does this or that, and then move on from them. It's just that simple. It's not a requirement to see somebody evolve and then force yourself to be in their energy. Like, you can always exit once you see someone is evolving in a way that you don't agree with, or if someone is taking a path that is different from yours and you have an issue with it, you can separate yourself. It's not just me that can do it just because I know that I'm taking a new step with my new chapter. It's people who may feel some type of way about it who can also take their own step or their own, move to the left or the right, whichever way they feel is best for them. So, like I said, life cycle 5, age 29. And this year I'm turning 30. I call it my young 30. I don't call it dirty. My 30 not going to be dirty. It's going to be a beautiful one. It's going to be very clean and sexy. Always classy. Never messy. So that's just what it's going to be. And I'm excited about it because I have closed out a lot of things from my past to cleanse myself, to regain my health, my strength, my mental, my peace, my sanity. I've closed out cycles, like I said, with the military, with the college experience I had before, with jobs and workforce types of things I was into before, with carrying a child and losing one, being married and, failing at marriage, and going through relationship issues and cycles, friendship issues and cycles, workplace issues and cycles. I can even say that I've tried acting and music in which I am not closing out that chapter in a way where I'm not going to allow myself to evolve in that even more. So the way that I view it is, I tested the waters with more than just one thing of my interest, as they call that maybe a jack of all trades or whatever, right? But what I'm doing is something that's going to allow me to evolve into my next chapter, to master as many things that I desire to do. And in the midst of that, I may tap back into some things from my past as far as the arenas that I was in, but it will never be the same. It will always be different because my new chapter consists of new energy. It consists of experience and starting over with experience. It consists of starting with a new leaf of not even healing, but being healed, being evolved. Like, I feel free from the attachments of people, places, and things that have once been, I guess, something that have been tried to be binded to me or that I felt bound to. I'm no longer in that energy. I actually feel so much more like light because of the fact that going into my 30s, it's an option to do things different or remain the same. And I've already cleansed my plate. As I'm going into my 30s, this is my year 3. This is my year 3. Like I've been saying before, I celebrated the 28th year as my year 1. My 29th year is my year 2. And now going into my 30s, my year 3. This is my year 3 of my life cycle 5. It is the second year of my life cycle 5. I'm excited to look at it in the way that I am. And at age 29, I decided to celebrate my birthdays, to celebrate each of my my top 4 energies and the cusp of them. So that's my way of doing things, right? We all are entitled to our own way of living our own lives. And I understand that when you break cycles, it can trigger other people to maybe get offended by your decision to do things out of the box, or to do things that in ways that make you feel comfortable, right? Like me being online right now with a mask may irritate somebody, but you know how much I don't care about that, because that's not my problem that you have an issue with what I choose to do on my life. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's simple stuff like that. That's like going into my new chapter and embracing this evolved and healed energy that I'm in. I'm not really too concerned about who or what chooses to move on from me or chooses to stay, because that's not what you can be concerned about when you are focused on your present and future evolution. And another thing about new chapters, I'm a type of person that I evaluate my past not because I'm stuck in it per se, but because I don't like messiness. I like organization. That's a personal thing. Some people don't care for that. Some people only like clutter. The thing about it is, even though I like organization, I find myself having a lot of things out of place on a regular basis. But to me, it's organized because I know how I left things in a certain way. If that makes sense to some people, that's because I put it that way because everything that we are accustomed to still can be kind of understood in our own way. We can design our own definitions for certain things that align with our own format to life or our own remedies. And that's kind of like tying into self journeys and how ultimately we are the creators of the way and the path that we are on in our lives. And when we're on, I guess if you want to call it matrices or cycles or wheels or whatever, when we're in those things, it's kind of like we run into roadblocks. And I can speak on this because even though I may not have been on a cycle in, my career at one point, I may have been on cycles in relationships with intimate relationships, right? So in an intimate relationship, what I learned from being on a cycle is my first, quote unquote relationship of where I thought I was in love. This person taught me things unbeknownst to him or me. And I'm pretty sure I taught him things. But the point is to recognize those lessons and then choose to either evolve from them or kind of stay in them until you're able to learn the lesson. I wasn't going to be the person who's in a domestic violence relationship and choosing to be the lesson by being in a coffin. You get what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, when you're in an abusive relationship, and this is only one example of the things and the many lessons that I've learned, and they'll be detailed in my 20 Divine book about, what my 20s experience was like. But ultimately, what I learned from that is that it's a choice to stay in a relationship that is either draining you or that you're giving much of yourself, but you're not receiving much from, or a relationship where you are becoming a leech, even where you're just kind of like sitting around a person hoping for them to do things for you that you should be doing for yourself. Recognizing the era of not just that person's ways, but my own was important when evaluating my past relationships. And I do that because that's how I'm able to learn the lesson. And once I learned those lessons, I found myself releasing them and not attracting those types of energies anymore in any other person, because it's not the person that was so much as being the issue. It was that energy that I was attracting and allowing. And some of it was generational. Some of it was generational. Some of it was, I guess my own projection, like my own attraction, my thing that I was attracting. So ultimately, what I realized and learned from that is that I needed to allow myself to be open to welcoming new energy after releasing energy that was holding me back from seeing like what I truly deserved. Put it like that. And I also had to allow myself to believe that this person deserves just as good as the next man is to receive. The next man that I feel that can bring me something great. He may have had, certain karmic relationships before me that taught him lessons. And I'm just wanting and desiring to meet more men who are willing to recognize the lessons of their, prior relationships or into situationships or whatever, and just decide to be able to let them go. Not necessarily let the person go, because honestly, like I said, it's an energy. If a person heals that energy or that attachment or that piece of brokenness that they've carried from relationship to relationship to relationship, I feel like that person can become made new in that particular part of their energy to welcome new foundations in a relationship. But that takes two. So say as though it was that I would have worked with that person in turn of marrying someone else like I did. Marrying someone else and then carrying over the same energy that's unhealed was still attracting kind of like, all right, this cyclic kind of like mannerism, in which I had to really recognize, like, I'm not bound to those energies anymore. But I'm attracting this because it was something that I wasn't recognizing was following me, as far as an energy that I hadn't allowed myself to just acknowledge and learn from. And instead of masking it or covering it or anything like that, but to move on, I was already moving on. I had already gotten married. I had already gone through, the loss of a child and so on and so forth. I was living my life already. So releasing attachments is also releasing that part of me where I cared too much after the fact. Because even though I wasn't concerned necessarily about having this person back, I was still the type of person that didn't want that person to be hurt or get himself caught up in things. Or, I could sit here and talk about many different things that I just wish that he wouldn't have done for himself after the fact. But ultimately, it was meant for me to see that I was doing that so that I could release that energy of myself. Caring about somebody's like intentions, actions, or whatever after the relationship really it was no point in that. It was really no point in me concerning myself with that person at all. Not even after the rebound relationship that I had after that. But ultimately, learning to get out the relationship and give myself time was important. That was a lesson I learned. And these are things, like I said, for myself. My lessons is not necessarily aligned with other people. This is my life. I'm not speaking on anybody else's life but my own. So, so to move forward, it was basically like I wanted to be able to analyze what I thought also was still good with communicating with these people that wasn't. Like this, for instance, right? I have a tattoo from when I got married. We both got these tattoos. At the end of the day, I had to release the fact that this person might decide to go get his covered up. But I'm not going to make that decision for myself unless I choose one day, okay, I'm ready to cover this and leave this behind in that way. I'm leaving behind the relationship already because it's already said and done. But the energy that was attached to that marriage is something that I'm still evaluating so that I'm able to be like, okay, what ways can I release this for my spirit to be free from it completely? And I don't care if that person does what he has to do in whatever way to heal for himself. It has to be that I'm focused on how I'm going to heal for me and how I'm going to heal for welcoming the idea and the love that I desire back into my world and into my life. Because, the next person might be like, all right, I don't want you to have that tattoo under the ring that I want to put on your finger. I have to respect that of the person that wants to be my husband. I'd rather be that way than to make an impulsive decision based on what somebody else does. So that's where my standpoint is when it comes to learning a lesson from the first relationship I've had to the most last, which was the marriage that I was divorced from. And one thing that I did different after my divorce situation from the first time of me breaking up. The first time I broke up, I got into a relationship. I had a rebound person. We was always sexually engaged. It was just real chaotic and just kind of toxic. Well, not kind of. It was toxic. But it was toxic because I was responding to my pain in a very childish way. And I wasn't really thinking straight. I wasn't thinking right with my head. And I was just moving in ways that I was adding trauma to my wounds instead of literally cleansing my wounds and allowing them to properly heal. So that left bruises, on my life, on my heart, on my spirit, and it needed to be resolved and iced. So once I was able to ice myself out, give myself the time to sincerely give me the space needed. It unfortunately had to happen on my path. It happened after my divorce, or my second heartbreak, if you want to put it that way. And that was something that needed to happen the way it did, because that person didn't deserve to have to deal with me carrying over into our marriage the baggage and burdens that I hadn't healed from or evolved from yet from past relationships. And that's why, to me, lessons are important to recognize and learn from and grow from. And like I said, the first time I got out of a relationship, I did a lot of toxic ways of healing. So this time, getting out of my marriage, I changed the course and I chose to take a more divine approach to it, because I said, where can I come to a place where I'm taking this journey just with me, where I'm really taking the time to say, okay, I was hurt emotionally. My feelings were hurt. My heart feels abused. My kindness feels abused. My peace feels disturbed. And I had to really just accept these things and take with a grain of salt that for the most part, I can point the finger and blame these people and the men that I loved all day. But at the end of the day, when sitting with myself, it was my fault to continually allow those things and those energies to be a part of my life and my space. And the flags that were obvious to me, I ignored. And these are the truth. I was not necessarily a people pleaser, but I'm a lover. I'm a very hard lover. So I love these people unconditionally, to the point where it wasn't anything they could do that I would, judge and just hurry up and walk away. I wasn't a skirt quick type of female. I worked through things with the people that I loved in relationships. I talked to them as much as I could. I would send paragraphs and essays expressing my feelings and my emotions to these people and wouldn't get a thing said back to me. And this is something that I had to learn. I was trying to build something with people who were not interested in building anything with me. And that is just the reality that I had to learn, as well as of another lesson. And I don't view lessons as, an issue. I actually view a lot of my lessons as blessings from Allah, allowing me to see where I was going wrong and what roadblocks I was creating in my own path, what obstacles I was putting up, what red flags I was literally ignoring and creating clouds on top of clouds to cover these realities that were not really aligned with the truth. So when speaking about Allah, unity, peace, love, and truth, like I've said before in previous videos, or maybe I haven't, Allah is that first initial thing, because in self journeys, it allowed me to be able to think of my higher self. My higher self is who I'm basically always praying to when I'm in my meditational prayer, because I cannot say that I actually have seen the divine in the flesh, other than to say that I believe people are all divine in our own ways, and we do have other toxicities and, our demons and our angels or whatever of our energy. But at the most, I believe that we are all a part of the divine realms, and we are spiritual beings having earthly experience. I'm going to always stick to that because I don't put any binding or bondage on the capabilities of any human, because I feel like we're all capable of great things. But I had to bring all of that energy that I feel of greatness of other people back into myself, because I'm a very, like I said, hard lover, but I'm very giving. I'm a giver. And that's another thing of a lesson that I had to learn about my energy. Not because I want to change that about me. I don't want to change that I'm a giving person. I think that's a beautiful thing. But what I do want to change is the way that I give, and to allow myself to place conditions on the people I give to, and for the reasons I give. Because everybody doesn't deserve my unconditional love. Because everybody is not going to pour that back into me. And although my cups are always going to be overrunning and overflowing because of the blessed individual I am, I know that I still have to love myself in order for me to be a loving and giving person again to people. There's been times I've drained myself trying to assist people who are not ready yet for that assistance, or who maybe did need it but maybe that at that time they weren't going to learn from it, or they weren't going to really grasp it or digest it. So I never regret any of the relationships I've had before this moment in my life, before this age, 29. Like, I'm very grateful to be 29 years old and say that I was willing to discipline myself enough to release myself. At my 1 year, which was age 28, I started to release myself from certain addictions that I had. And that was a personal choice. Just like me celebrating 4 birthdays at age 29 is a personal choice. My birthday is the day I was actually born into this world and this earth and this body is September 24th, 1992. But when it comes to that, you look at, if you're a person who's into the zodiac, and I'm sharing this with you because, it's my natal chart, but at the end of the day, nobody can manipulate my chart. You can play with my chart, do readings all you want. You cannot change the course of my path because I control my life. So, that's just what it is. And that's for anybody who thinks that their little witchcraft stuff can work on me. It cannot. That's already dead. And it's going to bury itself with every person who buries their soul bit by bit by trying to attack others instead of evolving for themselves. So that one thing is my Virgo Libra. That one birthday, September 24. That's my Virgo Libran cusp. And I like numbers. I look at it like there's only 9 numbers. Of course, we can add zeros to make them infinite. But ultimately, there's 9 numbers. That's the God frequency. And then, I just do the simple math of the frequency of, 963. That's my entire birthday. So I look at things like that to kind of empower myself and what type of a goddess I am, what type of a energy and a great being that I am on this planet. I don't view it as an issue that I have the power that I have, and that I see other people as having that same possibility and potential to reach that part of themselves as well. And now I'm going into the second birthday that I've explored and expressed and celebrated for the first time in my life. A part of my only first year doing so at age 29. My second birthday I celebrated was December 22nd. December 22nd, I was able to celebrate being on that Sagittarius Capricorn cusp. And the energy of it, I allowed myself to really recognize where the parts of me aligned with those zodiac signs. And I was like, it's so funny how I was so focused all the time on my sun sign energy, not realizing that my moon sign energy is just as important, because that stuff is a part of who I am. That stuff kind of embodies a part of me that I've kind of not really embraced throughout my life, because I wasn't really paying attention to astrology. I was always kind of told to shun those things, and that they weren't godlike, or they weren't, almost like they were, if you want to look at it, since we're in Ramadan, they were haram or something. It was bad to know your zodiac sign birthday, but I digress. All I know is I'm doing it my way. This is my self journeys. Like I said, age 29, I'm celebrating all 4 of my birthdays. So my 3rd birthday celebration at age 29 was, as you know, and if you watch my page, you see my post, was March 23rd. And that was the first time that I celebrated my Piscean Aries energy and in my midheaven. So my sun sign 924, my moon sign 1222, and my not my ascending, my midheaven sign 323. And those energies are all falling on the cusps. And being in this Pisces Aries energy, I really can understand how this matters to the type of career I am going into and the careers I've been in. I understand myself a lot more by understanding how these placements on my natal chart affect my energy. It affects who I am and the decisions I make and the way that I think and the things that I attract in my work area, in my career life, and in other ways too, but mostly in my career and with my creativity and with the things that I take on for my day-to-day skill set, my talents, that stuff I pay attention to. And then my last and 4th celebrated birthday at age 29 this year will be posted and will be coming soon. And in the midst of doing so, I also added and incorporate what color, what chakra, spiritual center I wanted to focus on in each of those birthdays that I celebrated. So I'll get into more detail about this, like I said, but ultimately that has been a part of my self journeys, and it has actually uplifted me so much to get in tune with who I am to myself and who I am in general, because it's like I just wasn't paying attention to it like that at first. And once I realized I had so much energy to harness from, I was like, wow, this is a really powerful thing. A lot of us may have, because I realized once I looked at my chart that I have all of the zodiac signs in my natal chart. So I was like, oh, okay, well, it kind of like completely elevated my thinking on what signs or what and why people act a certain way, because just because somebody may only act in their sun sign energy doesn't mean that they don't act in the other ones as well, but they just not be aware of how they are carrying themselves in those other energies, you know, which is nothing wrong with that. People carry their lives the way they want to, but this is how I'm choosing to move forward with mine. And I'm embracing this. This is a thing that I would encourage for others. With my book, 20 Divine, I'll have blank pages for people to kind of like journal their own expressions as well towards what they find out about their natal chart. And there are books like this out already, but I'm not doing what I'm doing to try to keep up with nobody else's swag, style, or progression. This is my personal thing that I'm choosing to express and establish in the way that I feel is best for me and what I always wanted to do. I only took one trip around the country, 48 continental states, in my car when I was homeless, because I wanted to break free from my depression and my anxieties. And I was accepting that I was going through something, but I wasn't allowing myself to be bound by it or stay permanently stuck. And we can all overcome obstacles in whatever way best suits us. But the last thing I would ever recommend to someone is to commit suicide to themselves in physical manner or in spiritual manner, because that's the last thing that I would encourage, is for someone to give up on you. Never give up on you. Never let outside noise distract you and make you feel like this is your breaking point or that you can't overcome whatever it is that you're going through. Because just because you're going through it doesn't mean that when you close your eyes tonight, you won't wake up tomorrow and have another opportunity. Every day, we all get the same 24 hours. So every day, every moment that the sun goes up and comes down, and wherever you are in the world, you have a new opportunity to say, I'm not going to repeat yesterday. I'm going to do better. Or I'm not going to repeat last month. I'm going to plan ahead so that next month I can do better. I'm not going to be stagnant anymore because I'm waiting on anything outside of myself. Scheduling for yourself, even if you have a job, even if you are working with other people in groups or whatever, it's good to take that time to just gather yourself all back and say, okay, what do I need from me? And this is a something I always speak on, because we need these gentle reminders that it's okay to love yourself. It's okay to have the faith that you have. It's okay to say no to things at a time where you know intuitively that you don't want to do it or it just doesn't feel right. It's okay to put yourself first. And it's a must, in my opinion and book, to have unconditional love for you first. Like, that's what you have to do for yourself. Male or female, whatever other gender, animal, plant, organisms that breathe have to put themselves first. It's a must, because a glass half full, since people like to use this analogy, could never fill up another glass. Never. Because it's already half full. So it would never fill up another glass. And then, not to mention, the moment that it tries to, you're going to empty yourself out. So it's a must to fully become whole. And that's what this journey has been for me since I'm going into my year 3. My deuce year has been beautiful, because at age 29, and the reason I said I do the number thing like this is because when I was 28, I chose to use that year as my year of rebirth. And, just kind of cleansing and let myself go. But then with the number system, 8 plus 2 is obviously the number 10. You take out the 0 and you get the 1. And that's why I let my year 28 be my year of rebirth and what I call my first year of. So my first year of my rebirth was that 2019? Yep. And then 2020, when I had reached, I guess, the full 1. Yeah. And then last year I reached the full 2. In 2021 I reached my full 2 year. So it was like, now this third year going into age 29, I'm seeing how since my rebirth I have been growing, how I've been evolving, and through my self journeys I've self-parented myself, and this is not to discredit my parents. I absolutely love the way that my parents raised me, before I had this rebirth experience. But it's because of them that I was willing to say, I appreciate the path that you took and the sacrifices you made. And this is to my parents. I appreciate every single thing they did, whether they could or couldn't be there at certain times, whether they could or couldn't support me when I was having certain downfalls and setbacks. They did their best for me, especially when I was in my adolescent years, because that's when I needed them the most. When I hit my 20s, that was my decision. Those were my decisions. A lot of the mistakes I made, a lot of the turns I took, the paths I took that weren't necessarily where I needed to go, the wrongful decisions, the stupid decisions I made, the phony friendships I kept, the relationships I stayed stuck in, all of that those were myself. I can blame people, of course, but I choose not to. And I chose to rebirth so that I could really take myself more serious and be more self-aware and conscious and conscientious as well of what steps I was taking. And when I make mistakes nowadays, I'm very much more aware of where I went wrong in it. And I like to learn the lesson because, like I said, I view every lesson as a blessing. And a lot of rejection really truly is God-like protection, because my higher self does no longer lets me make certain turns. My higher self does not let me fall into certain traps, does not let me neglect myself. That is the goddess energy of me, and everybody has the ability to connect with their higher self so that they are guiding themselves. My higher self is always guiding me. That is just who I am, and that is a part of me that I will never let be ignored ever again. Linking back to childhood trauma, as even spoken in my music, I never let myself say that to take the time to self-parent was a waste of time in any way, because in the midst of self-parenting pretty much all last summer, I was able to really see what parts of me were rebellious to my parents, and which I didn't allow myself to learn just from them telling me, but I forced myself to learn a lot of things through experience like a fool. But through that, I needed to take that fool's journey. And shouts out to the tarot, because you know what the fool's journey is. And ultimately, I needed to take that fool's journey. I needed to be on alone so that I could really see my issues in the error of my ways, so that I could release codependency, because I was codependent. And, you know, even the person I was married to can say this. Like, after we got a divorce, I came running back to him because I'm like, look, I don't feel like being outside, you know. And this person loved me enough to be like, okay, you know, you always have somewhere to come to. The same way my parents gave that option to me. But I felt like I was being selfish by not allowing that person to continue to grow and evolve. As well as I had taken the time to meet with exes and was trying to, you know, apologize for if I had left them heartbroken. I was apologizing to friends if I made them feel, you know, like I was envious of them or competing with them. I apologized to friends about things that I may have looked at that they had that I didn't have. And then I was like, you know, really being vulnerable with myself and my insecurities with people that I admired and loved, who most of them to this day, if not all, are not really around me and not in my corner. But just because they're not doesn't mean that I don't still have love for them. It just means that they had to grow their way and I had to grow my own. And like I said, on the fool's journey of being on my solo trip, I have done nothing but shed light upon my greater self, my greater becoming. And it's a beautiful thing to me to go into my 30s with so much like peace and so much like grace, so much embracing to the loss of a child, for instance, like losing a child and then never mourning the fact that I actually lost a child was an issue for me. But when I took the time to self-parent, I really took the time on a regular basis to connect with that part of me that was broken in my womb, to remind myself that everything that I'm blaming myself even for is something that I can forgive myself for. And that's back to the observing, forgiving, the accepting that I always mention, that is a major part of self-journeys and evolving, is that it's a must to, as an observer or as a person who even doesn't observe, to choose to observe. And everything that you observe, yeah, it's going to be a moment where you want to blame somebody other than yourself. But once you do that, you have to then say, okay, what part did I play in this? Once you do that observation, you have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive other people that you accused internally or externally. You have to kind of like, repent to your higher self. Surrender to your higher self and say, you know what? I forgive you for even wasting this time on things that no longer were serving you anyway. And just forgiveness in all ways, in all aspects, but especially of yourself. And then to accept. And that part of acceptance is another constant, because there are going to be things that come into your energy space when you're in this mode of constant healing and evolution, where it doesn't want you to accept. It wants you to hurt from it. It wants you to stay stuck and bound to that pain so that you don't evolve. But in order for you to evolve, you have to allow yourself to not necessarily resist change. You know, you can't be a person who's resistant of change around you. And that doesn't mean you have to completely change. But if you want to see yourself in new light, there are things of your mental that have to be changed and reshaped. The way that you view yourself and view the world and view life and people has to evolve. It has to grow and it has to change in order for you to evolve for yourself and to accept things, because you can't change things outside of yourself, but you can make adjustments and changes to the way that you think, you feel, and you live for the benefit of your greatness. And that's nothing wrong with that. So those three things matter. And then the reason also why because I know people have wondered why I tap into different religions and I look at different religions so much. And the reason I did is because I was a person who was born into Christianity, as many know. And I always honor the foundations of Christianity because there's somebody who took the time to explore their higher selves at one point in history's timelines. And they said, I want to find a way to be able to give to people this breakthrough and this feeling of a breakthrough that I experienced. So those people who wrote those holy and sacred books wrote those books because they felt like this is the only way that I can reach masses of people in order for them to find the stability and sanity that they need to live life. Because as long as we live in ways where we're like empty vessels, or we're uncertain of ourselves, or we're uncertain of our purpose, it makes us just kind of be walking alive and not be cognizant of the fact that we have a purpose to fulfill, and that no matter how big or small it is not comparable to any other person, because we cannot take the time to focus on other people's purpose in life. It's a must to find yours. And the most basic things that we all are meant to do is, as I posted on my recent post, is to believe in the higher self, Allah, God, or the creator of all creation and things. Because that is the thing that we all know, whether you want to ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist or not, we know that it is a fact and a truth. So that is the first thing to do when it comes to ways to reach salvation. The second thing is to give to charity. That means you can be a volunteer. It's not always money. Money is not always a way to give charity. Giving your time, being in places where your aura alone can be enough to assist someone else to get out of their rut or out of their stuckness, giving away old clothes, old items, just words, even knowledge is a form of charity, if you ask me, because knowledge is power, and keys to success include knowledge and wisdom. So that is a form of charity. Charity, you have to be broad-minded in order to understand, but even if you aren't broad-minded, you have to allow your mind to expand with the changes, with the times, with the shifts, and with the dimensions of our existence. So that is the second thing. So belief in the higher self, which entails with all of creation, of the highest creator of all things, and that consciousness. The second thing, giving charity. And then the third thing is to assist others to their rightful path and purpose. That one may be hard for some because most people haven't even found that for themselves. And a lot of people fail to realize that the first teacher is the parent. And yes, it is the parent's responsibility to assist children to be able to learn how to find their grounding, their space, their sanity, and their actual knowing of thyself while they are a child. As a person who's a woman and who has a womb, I know for a fact, based on the time that I've been taking to myself, going into my 3rd year of my self-rebirth, I know for a fact that I nurture my womb on a regular basis. I've really taken the time to do this, and I feel like even men, they don't have a womb, but they have a scrotum, which carries the seeds. You can nurture the parts of you that are meant to physically reproduce, because we can reproduce without reproducing children. You can reproduce seeds in all many other ways. But this part of your body is attached to your spiritual center. And that's what I'm saying that for, is that your womb area for men and is just as valuable as the womb of women. And there's no need to try to copy or mimic the opposite sex in any way, shape, or form, or to feel like you're being copied either, because a lot of people need to kind of have a phase of kind of like really tapping into both energies. Like I had my phase of tapping into my masculinity, and I will be honest, like it can confuse you. It can kind of get you to a point where you're like, wait, I really understand this energy too much. Am I meant to be this or that? Like, and it really can get you to a point where you end up staying in that energy because you feel as though this is where you're meant to be. When in reality, when I was experiencing that energy, I learned that I was meant to embrace that, because that's how I felt my cup to be whole. That's how I felt myself to be whole, is to allow myself to balance that masculinity into my femininity, and to understand my femininity more by knowing what types of mother wounds and father wounds I had, because those things are linked to my higher self. My ancestors are linked to my higher self. Those things are linked, those generational traumas that weren't healed before me. I looked at those things within myself through meditational prayer, as well as asking my elders who were still thankfully living with me, what was life like for them? And elders in general, I'm always tapping into different generations of people's mental, because I like to understand life before me, as well as being a teacher in the past. I like to understand the life after me, and also what afterlife is and what before life was. And just understanding life and existence itself has made me be very confident in the becoming of myself. And I want to leave this here because I don't want to make this video a little, too long. But I appreciate the time that you took to watch this video about new chapters. And I'm very thankful for every journey up until this day that I've had, especially last year, being able to take the time out of my life and my pockets with no job to invest in my albums. Debbie Jam is a precious seed to me. And I am taking my time with the baby steps of it, because although it's 3 albums, it really was one project, because I had a lot of writing and a lot of emotions to express. And that's another thing which will be in 20 Divine, is the components of, Debbie Jam, and the system that I used of, tapping into my lower chakras, and these first 3 years of my self-rebirth. And I can't even say 3 years, because I'm just now getting into my young 30. So I might release 20 Divine this year. I might release it, in the next 2 years. You never know. But when it comes out, I want to already in advance give a complimentary moment of sending love to whomever is a supporter of me and of where I'm going with my path. And for people who reach out to me in ways where we've been communicating, whether it be through DM, through text, email, the people where we bumped heads, but then we bounced back, people who understand my spirit and my soul and aren't, confused or offended by things without questioning me about things. People who didn't assume something they've heard about me, but directly asked me. I appreciate you. I appreciate any support and love that I've been given behind the scenes, behind my back, and in front of my face. And moving forward, to wrap this up and allow unity, peace, love, truth, I want to say that new chapters, they do require you to be dear to yourself. And ultimately, when I say dear this, dear that, it's a term of endearment when making a statement, because everything that may come off as sarcasm may not be meant to be received in that way. So I'm just praying for more of my energy to be received properly, and for people to understand that a new chapter is something that is not something to be fearful of. It's not something to be rejecting to, and it's not something to be afraid of having people direct energy at you that you aren't expecting of. Because like when you go into a new chapter, there is going to be an abrupt change, not just to yourself, but to things around you. So be prepared for that, but not in a way where you're like looking at it negatively. If there's things you got to let go, let them go. Great things, even if you let them go, will always come back to you when you evolve to meet them halfway, just as well as negative things or not so great things that fall off of you. If they evolve to meet you halfway, they will also come back around. Everything comes around full circle. So it's a must, in my opinion, to allow yourself when walking into new chapters to be willing to just let go, whatever it is, and give yourself the chance to take the fool's journey. This is Bree India, Goddess B, sending you love. Going into Earth Day tomorrow, 4/22. We have an hour before 4/22/22. And I just want to say, for Earth Day, allow yourself to walk into whatever it is that you're walking into with grace. If it's a new chapter, allow yourself to let go of the things that haven't allowed you to walk into this chapter wholeheartedly and wholefully. And I send in my love to you. Peace and blessings be upon you. Love.